Hey everybody, this is Frilioth and welcome back to another episode of the Minecraft Survival Manual. In today's video I'm going to be talking a little bit about redstone and how to make it and what you can do with it and how fantastic it is. I love redstone. Redstone is by far and away the most interesting part of Minecraft as far as I'm concerned. I don't build as well as most people. Certainly I don't build anywhere near as well as Avo does, but I do enjoy a bit of redstone and just messing about with it. The satisfaction of having to do something and then methodically working my way through it and finally at the end of it having a contraption that works is just fantastic. It's what I live for. And I got interested in redstone back in the day from watching Etho and Zizuma and Mumbo when Minecraft was quite young and redstone was in its infancy, back when you needed bud switches to do things before observers came along and that kind of thing. But we'll run through that in a second. But at the end of the video, don't forget to pop over and see how Avo has approached this video, this episode. I'm sure he's looking at redstone in a completely different way to me. So go and check him out, but don't do it until the end of the video. I don't want you just running off now, right at the beginning. So I'm going to run in here, which is going to be our chest room eventually, but it seems like a good enough place to start to do a little bit of redstone, to lob down a few bits and pieces, and we'll have a look at it. Let's get rid of this. Hopefully there's going to be enough light in here for us to see what we're doing. Now I've bought myself a crafting bench because I'm going to need one, and I've also bought pretty much everything else I'm going to need that I currently have. I really could have done with some slime, but I've not come across any slime yet. I've not found a slime chunk. I thought I might have found one in here somewhere. There's usually one in a cave somewhere, but I've not found one yet. So I can't do any sticky pistons yet, but we'll worry about that later. Now, I like to characterize redstone in three categories, really. There's the redstone that provides the power. This is the redstone torches, the levers, the pressure plates, the switches and that kind of thing. Then you've got the redstone components that transfer the power, like the redstone dust or repeaters or observer blocks, that kind of thing. And then you've got the redstone components that use the redstone, like trapdoors and fence gates and doors and that kind of thing. So if we start with the very basics and build a couple of things that provide power, the first one and the easiest one to make would be the redstone torch. And you don't need a crafting bench for a redstone torch. And if you open your crafting book like this and then click on the little redstone tab at the bottom, it'll tell you it'll tell you all of the redstone items that you can currently make. And if you click on the showing craftables, so it'll show you everything. It shows you everything that you can currently make, which on the face of it doesn't look like a great deal, but we can make redstone torches. So we'll make 10 of those to start with, and it's opened some new recipes, which is brilliant. Now if we put that redstone torch on the floor, that'll provide power on every axis. So it'll provide power to the left, to the right, to the front, to the back, and it'll also provide power to a block above it. So if I grab myself a block and put myself a block there, it also provides power up there. So if I put a bit of redstone dust on the top, you'll see it provides power up the top there, and it also provides power going away on either side like that. So the redstone torch provides constant power. Let's just remove that for a second. Another redstone component that provides constant power is the lever. Now, as you can see, the lever is not currently in our recipe book, although we can make it. To make a lever, you'll need a piece of cobblestone and a stick. It's as simple as that. And we've unlocked some more recipes in our recipe book. So if I pop out that torch and I put down that lever, this lever can be toggled on and off, like any normal lever, I suppose. And it doesn't matter which way round it's facing either. So it could be facing that way, or it can be facing that way. There's still an on and an off component to it. And you can also put it on the side of a block, and on the top of a block, and on the bottom of a block for that matter. If I put a lever there, and power that block. Although the torch, the lever, isn't actually touching the dust, it's powering that block, and then the block is powering the redstone. That's directly powering the redstone. Now there is direct and indirect power, which we may touch on today, but I'm not sure we will. But again, if you put the lever on top, it works in the same way. Then we've got buttons, and again, I don't think the buttons don't show up there, although they're easy to make. A stone button, is just one piece of stone, and a wooden button is just one wooden plank, like that. And they provide two different lengths of power. They both provide power that has got a signal strength of 15, but they do it for different lengths of time. So hopefully I'll be able to show you. If I put a wooden button on there and press it, it lasts for that long. If I whip this off and put a stone button on there, this lasts for a little bit less long. And that can be used to your advantage later on. The simplest thing, or the best reason for using a wooden button rather than a stone button, is if you're trying to get through a door. If you've got a door that's being activated by redstone, pressing the button, a stone button, then trying to get through it, if you mess it up a little bit, then the door slams in your face. If you use a wooden button instead, it stays open for just that little bit longer. Gives you that little bit more time to get through the doors. So they're buttons. Next, we'll talk about pressure plates. Now, there are 4 different types of pressure plates. I said that tentatively. I believe there are 4, and we'll find out in a second when we start making them. We've got the stone pressure plate. We've got the wood pressure plate, which we've had for quite a while. Then we've got the heavy pressure plate, which you make out of iron, out of steel. And then you've got the light pressure plate, which you make out of gold. So if we make ourselves a stone pressure plate to start with, stone pressure plate is just 2 pieces of stone next to each other. A wooden pressure plate is made out of two planks, like that. The lightweight pressure plate is made out of gold, and the heavy pressure plate is just 2 pieces of iron, like that. And like the buttons and the switches, they will be able to power a block. Now, I didn't mention at the time, but if you put a lever on the side of here and activate it, it highlights the dust, it activates the dust. But if you put a torch on the side of a block, it won't. Okay, putting a torch on the side of a block doesn't power that block. Putting a torch on the top of that block doesn't power that block. Although putting the torch underneath the block will power the block. But I'm sort of going back on myself there. So let's just get rid of this. So if we put down a stone pressure plate, like that, if we walk on that, it provides power. If we also, if you break it with your hand, schoolboy error, if you break it with your hand, like if you break any stone, bit of stone with your hand, it just destroys it. It doesn't put it in your inventory, it actually just destroys it. So we're going to have to make another one. Don't go punching stone, it's not good. If we put a block down there and put that pressure plate on top of it, if we jump on that pressure plate now, it puts power, direct power into that block below us, and it activates the dust. But don't break it with your hand, break it with a tool. And it's the same for the light pressure plate and the wood pressure plate, and any pressure plate that's on there will put power into that block, which puts power into the redstone dust. The difference, or the main difference between a stone pressure plate and a wooden pressure plate is, let me put the stone pressure plate down again. If I throw something on top of that stone pressure plate, it won't activate. Okay? So I can throw something on top of it. That's clearly, it was until I picked it up. Those planks there are clearly on top of the stone pressure plate, but it won't activate the dust. It has to be a person or an entity, a monster or a cow or something like that, something that walks, to be on that pressure plate before it will put power through it. With a wooden pressure plate, That's also activated by somebody standing on it. However, it's also activated by an item being thrown on it. Okay, so that's the main difference between a stone pressure plate and a wooden pressure plate. And you can use this for your advantage if you're trying to do a timer. If you want to do a 5-minute timer, then you can use this because the item there, unless your spigot settings have been changed on the server, an item will remain like that for 5 minutes. In 5 minutes, that will despawn, which will unpower that bit of dust. So you could have that on a clock, running into a dispenser or a dropper that fires an item out every 5 minutes. Ooh, bad guys over there. Can he get in here? He can get in here as well, can't he? So you've got to be careful with that. But that's the main difference. We'll probably touch on that later if we need to make a 5-minute timer. But that's one way of making a 5-minute timer. Now with the lightweight and the heavy pressure plates, they work similarly to the wooden pressure plate in that you can throw things on there and it will activate this dust. However, the difference being, the more items you throw on there, the more dust it will actually activate. If you throw an item onto a wooden pressure plate, it will give out a signal strength of 15. Maybe I should have put down 15 bits of dust to show you that in the first place. But a wooden pressure plate there and a stone pressure plate, if you walk on it, it will activate 15 pieces of dust. The light pressure plate and the heavy pressure plates don't do that. They activate a certain number of pieces of dust depending on how many items are on there. So if I were to throw just 2 items on a light pressure plate, you'll see that it activates 1 piece of dust. If I were to throw some more on there, it'll activate a few more pieces of dust. And if I were to throw a few more items on there, it activates a few more pieces of dust, and so on and so forth. So the more you throw on there, the more the dust is powered. And again, you can use this in mob farms and traps and all kinds of stuff. And if a person were to stand on there, it only gives off a signal strength of 1. Okay. With the heavy duty pressure plate, you have to throw on loads more items before it starts to be activated. So a pressure plate on its own, a heavy pressure plate, will give off a signal strength of 1 with a person on it. But whereas before, when I threw lots of items on there, the signal strength came all the way down to here. Because it's a heavy pressure plate, it doesn't. And you'll need stacks and stacks of items, which I don't have, on there before it starts increasing the signal strength down the line. So again, you can use it for different kinds of contraptions, but that's the main difference between a heavy pressure plate and a light pressure plate. Is just how much of a signal is put out down the redstone line. Okay, so we've talked about redstone torches providing power, 15 signal strengths of power. We've talked about levers providing 15 signal strengths, pressure plates and buttons which provide power as a button intermittently rather than continuous. Now I want to talk a little bit about the tripwire hook. So I've got a couple of tripwire hooks here. To make a tripwire hook, I should have made one while you were here, but to make a tripwire hook you need a plank, you need a stick, and you need a piece of iron, and that'll make you 2 tripwire hooks. And the tripwire hook won't work on its own. That's useless on its own. Okay, you can't do anything with that which will put power into that redstone dust. And it's the same if you put a bit of string on it as well. If you look at the hitbox here and put a piece of string on it, that's not actually connecting to the tripwire hook. It won't do anything. Okay, in order to get that to work, you need to attach this end of dust to another tripwire hook. Okay, so if we put a tripwire hook there, you'll hear the click. The hitbox of the string changes. It's nowhere near as big now. And now if I walk into that, or you put an item into that, or a mob walks into that, it'll put power through the redstone dust. And as you can see, it's not actually touching the redstone dust. The redstone dust in effect takes up that entire block, just like that. block takes up the entire block. That redstone dust takes up the entire block. So I can't put a piece of dust, sorry, a block directly on top of that dust. There's going to be a block's distance in between them. So that's that. And as I say, if I throw something through there, you might be able to see it. You might not. It goes on and goes off again. What is going on out there? Oh, it's a llama. I can hear a llama outside spitting and everything. So that's a tripwire hook. If I were to put the dust next to the block like that, it'll activate. It's the same with a lever and a switch. And if I were to move that up to the top and put it above on the block above it, that will activate it as well. But it won't if I put the redstone dust up there. Okay, because there's that block's powered, but it's not powering that block. You'll get used to this when you start playing with it, because redstone's fantastic. It's if you've got a little bit of logic, if you understand a little bit of logic and just apply logic to it, then redstone isn't that complicated. It's just like electricity. It's Minecraft's electricity. So now we've looked at the components that create power. Also a redstone block. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. A redstone block will also provide power. And that's really useful if you want to power rails. Because you can put that in the floor and put a rail on top of it. But if you do use a redstone block, there's no point trying to put another redstone component on the side of it like that, and because that just won't work, because it's continually powered from the redstone anyway. But I'm sure you knew that. So that they are the components that create power or create a redstone signal in Minecraft. So now let's have a look at the components that extend the signal or transfer the signal from the power source to whatever it is that you want to send power to. And there are a few of those. So we've got the transfer. We've got the observer block, which is my all-time favorite block, which is 6 pieces of cobblestone, 2 pieces of redstone dust, and then a bit of nether quartz that we collected last time in the nether, which is why we had to go to the nether before we could talk properly about redstone, because you can only get nether quartz in the nether. So I'm going to make now I'm going to make a repeater, which is 3 pieces of stone, 2 redstone torches, and a blob of redstone in the middle. And I'm going to make a redstone comparator, which is 3 pieces of stone at the bottom, 3 redstone torches. It also needs a piece of nether quartz, which again is why we had to go to the nether. So if I show you how a repeater works, or the most common use of a repeater, because there are loads of uses for a repeater. The most common use of a repeater is just extending a redstone signal. As I mentioned, a redstone signal will only travel 15 blocks down a piece of redstone dust before it runs out. So if we stick a redstone torch just here, it'll run all the way down here, and eventually the particles stop coming off of it, and that's a signal strength of nothing. If we press F3, actually, you can see the signal strength of the dust. If you look on the right hand side now, it says power 15. So that bit of dust is a power of 15. Then 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. And then this last one, signal strength, a power of 1. And then it runs out. So in order to extend that signal now, we need to put a repeater here. It repeats the signal. If we block out that piece of dust there, put a repeater there, that will now extend the signal for another 15 blocks. I'm running out of space, so that extends it for 15 blocks, which is superb. Now, repeaters, as I mentioned, they extend the redstone line, but they also put a delay in the signal. So let me swap this over for a button, a lever, and we'll see if I can show you this. So if I turn this on, if I flick this lever on now, because this is on a 1 tick delay, you can see there the little numbers. Yours probably won't have numbers on them. I'm using a better than default 2.4 texture pack, which puts numbers on my repeaters. But that's a 1 tick delay. That's a 2 tick, 3 tick, 4 tick, and every tick adds a tenth of a second to the delay. So from me flicking that lever to this line of redstone dust being powered, there'll be a tenth of a second delay, and you might be able to see it. See, there's a little bit of a delay. If I crank this up a little bit to 2 ticks, that's 2/10 of a delay. A little bit more pronounced. And it's not only when it's turning on, but it's also when it's turning off as well. It just adds the delay. The repeater adds the delay. But now 3/10, which is loads more pronounced. And then 4/10 is obviously 4/10. I'm going to make another one of these because you can chain these together. So if you wanted a short delay, now if you want a really long delay, this is not the right way to go about it. But if you want a short delay, maybe a second or so, then just put down 3 or 4 repeaters in a line, put them all on maximum delay or whatever delay you want. Now you can see it's quite a considerable delay in me flicking the lever and the signal reaching that redstone dust. So that's another use of a repeater. What you can also do with a repeater is you can lock it, and we'll go into this later. But if I were to put a redstone, I can't just put a piece of dust there and then power it, because that won't work. Okay, that's going to do nothing. But if I put another repeater there facing into the side of that repeater, it's going to lock it. Okay, power into the side of a repeater locks the repeater. So even if I flick that lever on now, the signal won't go through that repeater. It gets stopped. And again, that's really handy for more complicated pieces of redstone. If I turn the power off, the signal gets through. And what a repeater also is, and this goes for comparators as well, but not for redstone. Okay, the power along a redstone line goes in both directions. If I were to put a piece of power just there, if I were to turn this lever off, the line will stay powered because it's receiving power from there. The power of the current up and down a redstone piece of dust, a redstone line, is two-way. It'll go both ways. However, if I put a repeater in here, that acts like a transistor, and that will stop power. It will only allow power to go one way. So if I turn that off, power will come from my lever down this line, through the repeater, down this line to here. Okay? If I flick that off, and then I power the line from the other end, like that, the power stops here. Okay, it won't go backwards through a repeater. So it acts like a transistor. And that is, again, really useful for more complicated bits of redstone when you want the power to travel down, but you don't want it to travel back again. That's what that does. Put that back just there. So that's a repeater. The repeaters are great. Next thing is the comparator. Now, like a repeater, a comparator will extend the signal from the redstone block behind it, but it won't amplify the power back up to full power. Basically, if the power going into the back of a comparator is at a signal strength of 5, then the power coming out will be a signal strength of 5. Okay, so that's easy to show you just by pressing the F3 screen. If you look at the power on the left, the right hand side now, that's got a power of 10. If I look at this now, it's got a power of 10. So it doesn't amplify it, it just extends. It just allows the power to go through it. Now you may be wondering about the little knobby bit here on the front, the little red nipple thing on the front of it. If you right click on the comparator, that lights up. What that's doing is putting the comparator into subtract mode. And subtract mode does exactly what it says. You can put power, unlike a repeater, you can put power into all 3 sides of the comparator. Okay, so if we were to put a bit of redstone dust there and put a bit of power there, it will put power into the side and it will subtract that signal, the strength of that bit of dust there, from the power going into the back of it. And because the power going into the back of it, as we just looked at, was 10, and the power from the redstone torch is 15, it's taking 15 from 10, which is obviously minus 5, so it's not producing any power. Okay, if I were to change that around to do that, and then flick the subtract button like that, you'll see that it's got a power coming into the side of 10, got power coming into the back of 15. So it takes 10 away from 15, which leaves us with a signal strength of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so you can use that when you want to use more complicated bits of redstone. If we were to just put, if we were to leave that in normal mode, not subtract mode, it would just take it would just output whatever's being input. Now, another use for the comparator is for pulling signals out of containers, out of things that will carry items, and obviously the most common one of those would be a chest. So we've got something in that chest there. If I grab my comparator and put it there, it detects that there are items inside this chest, and it will put out a signal depending on how full that chest is. Now, this is quite complicated, and I'm not going to go into it here, but it outputs based on the percentage of items in the slots inside here. So if you were to put items that stacked in 64s and completely filled it, it would give out a signal strength of 15. If you were to fill it with items that stacked in 16s, it would give out a signal strength of 15. Although there are less items in there, it will still give out the same signal strength. If you were to put items in there that only stacked individually, if you filled the chest with swords, it would give out a signal strength of 15. Okay, so it's not how many items are in there, it's how full the slots are. So if that slot was, if the only item in there was 32 pieces of redstone in that slot, it would give out the same signal as if there were 8 items in there, 8 ender pearls in there, or 8 snowballs in there. Okay, so it's a percentage of how full the chest is, not the amount of items in there. But as I say, that's where it gets a little bit complicated. So if you want to read up a little bit more on that, then grab yourself, go and have a look at the wiki, because again, it's really interesting if you like that sort of thing. Now, comparators, I keep saying, and also a comparator, you can make a really quick clock out of a comparator, and it's really easy to do. You just need to put a power source there, a torch, or a lever or something like that there, like that, and then put some redstone dust running around into itself, and then put it in subtract mode, and it flashes like that. So let's have a look at a few more things that use the redstone signal once it's been given out. So if we look at this, we can make ourselves a dropper, which is just 4 pieces of cobblestone, a bit of redstone dust at the bottom, and we're going to make ourselves a dispenser as well. Actually, I'm going to put that bit of wood back because I don't need it, and if I don't put it back now, I'm going to forget about it. So to make a dispenser, we're going to need a bow, 3 sticks and 3 pieces of string. We made ourselves a bow. Okay, we can now make a dispenser, which is that there. The main difference between a dropper and a dispenser is one dispenses something and one drops something. I might be just stating the obvious there, but that's a dispenser. If I were to put an arrow in there, or a bucket of water, or a bucket of lava, if I power that, it's going to dispense it. So it's going to fire the arrows out really quickly, or it's going to dispense water onto the floor, or it's going to dispense lava onto the floor. Do I have a bucket? I'm going to go and make a bucket. in order to show you. If I were to put my water bucket in there, with it being a dispenser, if I power that now, it's going to dispense it all over the floor. And then I need to power it again, and it will suck the water back in again. If we look in the dispenser now, there'll be an empty bucket. And it's the same with lava. If I power it again now, it sucks the water back in again. It is the same for lava. If I change that for a dropper, and this is why in all of my builds I insist, I labour the point, because it's very, very important that you don't mix them up. We use a dropper and put water in it. If I power that now, it just drops the item. It doesn't dispense it, it drops it. And it's the same with other items. It will just drop it on the floor. If that was a dispenser, it would shoot it quite a long way. So that's the main difference between a dropper and a dispenser. So what else can we make that uses a redstone pulse or a redstone? We can make, as I mentioned, trapdoors and doors. Just do exactly what you expect them to do. If you were to put power through a trapdoor or a door, it will open. And it's as simple as that. And it's the same with all of the wooden doors and the wooden trapdoors as well. One thing we haven't looked at yet is a note block. Let's make a note block. To make a jukebox, you do exactly the same thing, but you need a diamond in the middle, not a piece of redstone. And a jukebox plays records. As soon as we start finding discs out and about when we're hunting treasure and that kind of thing, we'll make a jukebox and we'll have a play with those. But for the time being, we'll only be able to make a note block. So if I just stick a note block on the floor and then put power into it, you'll be surprised to find out that it'll make a note. Have I got that disabled? I might have the note block sounds disabled. Or is that because I've got a block underneath it? Yeah. Put a block underneath it. It deadens the sound. But I am going to have to turn my sound options up. Music and sounds, jukeboxes and note blocks up to 47. Can you hear that now? And if you right click on it, you change the note. So if you wanted to, and people have done this and they've done some fantastic, made some fantastic tunes out of it, you could have a line and a room full of note blocks, and you can actually, using the delay on the repeaters and everything that we spoke about earlier, you can make music, and there are some fantastic pieces of music out there. Now, if you don't want to hear it, as I mentioned, put a block underneath it, put a block over the top of it, and you won't be able to hear the note. And we're going to be using one of these in the next video when we start playing with automatic fishers, because automatic fishers are brilliant and you can get some fantastic loot from them. Anyway, so that's just a very, very basic overview of the redstone components and how to make them, and you know, the basic uses of them. But they can be used to make some absolutely massive and really complicated pieces of machinery. We'll use them. We'll definitely use them during this series because, as I mentioned, I think redstone is the most interesting part of Minecraft. So we'll be making piston doors and flying machines and automatic farms and you know, all kinds of stuff. Item elevators, lifts, you know, everything and anything you can think of. Pretty much, you should be able to make it out of some kind of redstone componentry, if that's the right word. So thank you anyway, everybody, for watching. Don't forget to pop over and have a look at Avo's video and see what he's got to talk about today. And don't forget to like both of the videos if you actually do like them. And if you haven't already, please don't forget to subscribe for future videos. This is Frilioth, and I'm out of here.